in mind. It took me half a year trying different things before I settled down what I want to do. During the process, I contacted many people for advices and help, including my friend. So a friend who runs a mortgage data company called EMBS, and his name is Larry. So I asked him if he can give me his data for me to try, and he generously said yes, and that was a big surprise to me. And I tried to load it on different platforms, but I really felt at home working with market data because it was something I have always been doing and liked, and I have always been good at. So on January 1st, 2016, I put together a team. There were 3 of us, myself and a neighbor who's staying at home to take care of her children, and a young man freshly graduated from UIUC, but couldn't find a job. A friend of me sent him to me and hoped I could train him and boost his skills and improve his chance in the job market. And he turned out, he ended up working for me because he couldn't find any other opportunities. I utilized my experience working for hedge funds and designed a product that they could possibly pay for. Many things were new, especially in terms of technology, and the 3 of us have to figure out many things. I was always calling friends for help, including a few of them in this audience. I remember every week we seem to be stuck by something that is quite impossible. Then the next week, the problem just magically get resolved. We pushed out our first product, Recursion, actually pretty soon. And then I realized I have to go out and sell it. It was miserable. I had absolutely no sales experience. I have always been on the analytics and also the buy side of the financial market. I tried to use my connections and I visited different hedge funds. Many people were very curious about what we do and told me it is pretty cool, but nobody paid for it. They told me the bonds are so expensive that they don't see how they can make even 1 cent more using our tools to justify what they pay for. Unfortunately, I was introduced by EMBS to the federal government in the middle of 2016. They were facing an inquiry from the Congress, a particular situation. I went to Washington, D.C. to demo my system. It is not exactly what they were looking for, but it's the closest thing they have seen. So we started to provide monthly reports to the government agency to help them monitoring agency mortgage market. They were very nice. They told me, oh, we have to pay you. And getting paid by the federal government is not an easy thing, but they appreciated our work. And in 2017, they are officially Recursion's first client. There could never be a better client, first client like that. This experience told me our timing was just right. Even the original market sector we were facing was wrong. So in March 2017, we became Amazon technology partner, hoping having this hat would help us in marketing our services. In the middle of 2017, we pushed out another product called Recursion Analyzer, a GUI-based tool for users to query mortgage big data. A very early client helped us to spec out the requirements. I had amazing clients who trusted us so much that they signed contracts without seeing the product itself. They paid and guided us to develop them. We also developed good relationships with the media companies. We provide data to reporters for their articles. I became good friend of a few reporters. I also got to know my partner, Richard Koss, on LinkedIn, who originally tried very hard to write articles using our data. he actually was able to write an article and publish it on Bloomberg, and he made our names appear on Bloomberg. Later on, in the second half of 2018, I invited him to join us, and Richard is now the Chief Research Officer of Recursion. And Richard has a very different background from mine. He's an economist, and he looks at a big picture all the time. So that makes up my skill, because I used to look at everything at a micro level, at the trading level. But he looks at the big picture. Now we have survived 5 years. It's a pretty big achievement, as statistics show only 10% of startups survive the very first 5 years. So that's a pretty long introduction for Recursion's history. Let's move to the technology side. And in order to describe the relation, how we use the technology, I have to describe the data first, so we understand why the technology works well with it. So we started with agency mortgage data. Agency mortgage is a $7 trillion market. And if you were familiar with US GDP, it's roughly 20 billion. So agency mortgage data is about 30% of US GDP. And that what I'm talking about is the residential mortgage only. Then there is also commercial mortgage, agency commercial mortgage, which is $700 billion. And that is twice as big as the private labeled CMBS. I used to be trading private label CMBS before I started Recursion. So it's fairly big, and the tables come from our data partner company, EMBS, is close to 100. And the biggest ones, number of records is in terms of billings. It is not extremely big data, but it's just big enough for relational database to handle. And it is just big enough for us to come in and create value. And plus, our deep understanding of the data really helps. And also, I want to share a story from last night. I was inviting a few friends to come and join this event. Some says, oh, great, I will come. And some says, sorry, I will be very busy. And one friend actually told me, I'm not going to attend because you are an Amazon supporter. I was surprised, and then I was pretty amused. I thought that was pretty interesting. And I asked, am I really Amazon supporter? And the answer is, of course, no. But I'm wondering if I take Amazon out of this title, instead of 34 people in the audience, maybe I will get 70 or 80. So Amazon AWS is the only one tool. And there are definitely other big data tools can achieve similar goal. And I just happened to pick Amazon. And also, I watch very carefully on my AWS bills every month to make sure I'm not overcharged for anything. So that means I am not a supporter, I'm a consumer. Technology is very important. However, what I cannot stress enough is that even one gets the right technology, it doesn't mean you can deliver a great product. It's actually very far from it. What differentiates Recursion is our deep understanding of the data and the business that need the data. I have seen technology providers try to solve all the problems by upgrading hardwares. If querying speed is not satisfactory, then add servers. If data gets too big, then add disk space. Blindly doing this will only end up with piles of electronic garbage and skyrocketing AWS bills. Now, let's talk about technology. And I want to hand it over to my colleague, Tianci. She is the AWS solution architect in our firm. And she didn't get the title because we give her the title. She earned this title by passing a very difficult exam. Tianci and I also met on LinkedIn. I'm wondering if someone is going to call me LinkedIn supporter too. So Tianci, welcome. Now it's yours.
Thank you, Lee. AWS provides various cloud services, such as cloud computing and cloud storage. It guarantees high availability of their services by having different service centers around the world. Another advantage of AWS services is that they are quite flexible. We can scale up and down easily based on our demand levels. At Recursion, we heavily use 3 services provided by AWS. We use Redshift as our database, EC2 for our computing work, and S3 for our storage. We provide big data solutions to our clients. As a result, a practical database is essential to our success. In early stage, we tried various database products. For example, before AWS, we tried MongoDB. Anybody use MongoDB before? We find it really difficult to use. The good thing about MongoDB is that it's an open source database management system. And the bad thing is that it requires some effort to deal with the hardware issues and configure the environment. So pretty soon we give it up. Another attempt is to use the DynamoDB, a database product by Amazon. But this database is a key value database. In another word, every record in this database can be considered as a map of attributes and values with a primary key to retrieve it. This feature is more suitable for transaction data. So after several tries of different options, we finally settled with Redshift. It's a database designed for big data and complex analysis. We can query it using SQL language for data retrieval. Next slide, please. Thank you. Redshift handles well on complicated analytical work by 2 means. Firstly, it is column-oriented. By using this storage method, it reduces the input and output requirements, and the amount of data needed to be loading from disk are reduced. With that data loaded into memory, we can have more in-memory space to execute queries. Secondly, Redshift's design on massively parallel processing also contributes to the faster speed. This design automatically distributes workloads across multiple nodes in each cluster, and users can optimize the distribution by choosing appropriate distribution keys on the table. The great analytical ability of Redshift ensures an excellent user experience for our products. Next slide. In addition to the performance, Redshift also provides flexible scalability to match the capacity and the performance needs. It can be easily adjusted to the AWS console. The most concerned issue of cloud-based applications is security. Amazon has a responsibility model to share the security responsibilities between Amazon and its users. Basically, Amazon is responsible for the security of the cloud, and the organization is responsible for the security in the cloud. For example, AWS will take care of the infrastructure of its services, and users need to take responsibilities related to its applications. Besides, we can control credentials and access by managing the identity and access management accounts. You can also control access to your cluster by setting up a cluster security group. For example, you can identify a range of IP addresses and give them inbound access. For organizations that have a private cloud, VPC can be used to control access. AWS provides data encryptions as well. It can be enabled when creating the cluster and cannot be switched from encrypted to unencrypted directly. Also, Redshift uses SSL encryption for data transition to S3. So next we will talk about EC2. AWS EC2 is where we build our,
Tianci,
yeah.
thank you so much. This is great so far. We had a question in the chat. If you don't mind me interrupting in with a question.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, so this person acknowledges, yeah, sorry, this is not directly related to the main thread of your conversation right now, but could you share, now or maybe at the end, a little bit more about the solutions architect certification? Did you take a class before taking and passing the exam, or did you just work with AWS?
Sure, I can talk about now. So I do take a class before I take the exam. I took class on Udemy. And there is another organization called WISAP. They also provide classes about the certification exams. So I took the class there, and I also read some resources provided by AWS on this certification exam. And after learning like about 1 month, I took the exam and passed it.
Great, thank you.
So we use AWS EC2 to build our applications. So for example, we built many interactive front-end pages to help users query from our database. Users can get the data they need and do not need to write any SQL queries on their end. AWS offers a 99.9% availability for each Amazon EC2 region. The compute instances are located in VPC, which helps the user to control the access. EC2 has multiple instance types, instance storage, and operating systems that we can choose from based on our needs. At Recursion, we have many different types of instances used for various applications depending on the workloads, and we can increase or decrease the capacity easily in the AWS console. However, AWS sets default limits on resources which vary from region to region, and the information regarding the resources managed by EC2 is also limited. Another service we use is S3. S3 is an object storage service provided by Amazon. It provides a platform for us to transfer data to the cloud. It's easy to manage data and control access by setting up bucket policy. We can upload the data files to S3 and then load it into our Redshift database. As I mentioned before, data are encrypted using SSL, so it's quite secured. Combining the features of AWS services, we set up daily and monthly routines to load data into our database automatically. We reduce the tedious and repeated data cleaning and processing work, which improved both the efficiency and the accuracy of our data. Besides, we build up some automatic jobs to provide customized applications for our clients. So next, I will pass you over to on our applications.
Okay, so we actually built a lot of applications. Agency actually right in the middle is the application we built, the very first application, but it wasn't a great success. We spent a lot of time on it. Then it hit the market and we didn't get a lot of interest. And then our second product that gets sold is the Data Cloud. Data Cloud is a copy of our database. So we actually make copies of the database we processed to our clients. So the clients can run exactly the same query as we do. Actually, our client has better service than us. So the same query can run a lot faster than on our server. It depends on how much they pay for it. Another service application we have is the cohort analyzer that is running on our own Redshift server. it's a GUI interface allow people to run queries on big mortgage data. We did a lot of value added steps by we QA we set up the query, and we already fix all the possible pitfalls. So in calculating loan level, prepayment speed, default speed, default rates, all those standards like S curve, like HRAM, those are extremely easy using our interface. And typically in a traditional firm, they will have to have someone do exactly the same thing and do a lot of QA, and it takes a lot more time for them to achieve the same result. Last year, we attended ABS East, and we were having lunch on the same table with a very senior analyst from a big investment bank. So we compared, we're doing the same thing. The very junior analyst I brought together with me, she was with us only 4 months, and she can do the same query in 5 minutes, while the very senior quant at the bank, it will take him to run an overnight batch to get the same result. And we also, as I described, we compiled the mortgage derivative data set from agency mortgage data. And now even the equity analyst can make use of our data. And so the last, I want to talk about the V churning case. This is the user case that brought me to Washington, D.C. and brought the federal government as our client. The situation is there are some servicers or issuers refinancing the loans too fast, and the speed is measured by something called CPR. And when in 2016, there is rarely anybody that will calculate CPR at loan level. It was at a more aggregated level. And in that aggregated level, it is impossible to attribute the prepayment speed to individual companies. And we solved that problem by calculating the same statistics at loan level, so we can aggregate the loans serviced by the same company together and calculate that statistic called the CPR. And then we can pick out which company is prepaying the loans a lot faster than its peers. So this is a timeline of we work with the federal government, and the government push out policy, and then we provide feedback and monitoring reports to them, and they push out additional policy, and eventually they took a lot of actions and put the situation under control. This is a multi-year effort. And here are some charts to demo how it works. So the orange line refers one company, and the purple line refers to another. The orange line is one company, and the blue line is another company. The blue line is actually a very big bank, Wells Fargo, and the purple line is a non-bank company. And you can see the purple line and the orange, the deep orange line is very high. This is the prepayment measurement called the CPR. It is so high that you can so sure that it's doing something that it shouldn't be doing to reach that level. But there is a lighter orange line. So the dark orange line is what happens in October 2016. That is roughly 3 months after I met the government and start to provide monitoring. So the dark orange line is what I can report to the government what's going on. So I can show them the chart with the dark orange line and the dark blue line, and showing the difference of the prepayment speed of different companies. And the light orange line and the light blue line is the same measurement in April of 2017. This is after the government pushed out a new policy to slow down the prepayment speed. And you can clearly see their policy is working because both lines went down, even though the light orange line is still a lot higher than the light blue line. And from the bottom is the time series from the whole period of time. Again, it begins in October of 2016. That's right after I visited them. And you can see how high the dark orange line is. And then in April of 2017, and it matches the light two lines at the above chart, and you see the prepayment speed seems to be under control. But due to the nature of their policy, the prepayment speed actually picked up again. So the government has to create new policies. And after we work for a couple of years, you can see this problem is completely solved in the beginning of 2018 because they took really harsh penalty on those companies who violate the rules. We provide, we help them to quantify the prepayment speed, so they know when they go to tell the company stop the wrongdoing, they can give them the numbers that we actually provide loan level support for those numbers because those companies are not happy when they receive the speeding ticket. So this is the first big application. It's definitely not the only one. Today, I only have time for this one. We started a bit late, and I think we had a very good talk. So now we should start a Q&A, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. We already have a question. Is it possible to see a demo of the cohort analyzer tool and the X-ray tool?
Oh, definitely. If you're interested, I don't think we have time to do it here, but if you are interested, you can send an email to info@recursionco.com. Then we can definitely accommodate. Let me.
Great.
How can I?
Yeah, I'm able to type a response. Could you say the email address again? Recursion
Info. INFO @recursionco.com.
Recursionco.com.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you go to our website, www.recursionco.com, you will be able to find email addresses. And also, I forgot to tell everybody, we actually run a blog that is a very welcome among the industry veterans. We don't have a lot of followers because of what we talk is very niche, not too many people understand, but this is a part of our data democratization effort, is we push out the similar content comparable with those investment banks will put there in their research. But their research is only limited to their clients, which means most of the people wouldn't get access to it. But we make it public. So if you go to our website, you will be able to find the blog. And we have, we actually market those blogs in LinkedIn also. So you're welcome to read our blog.
Great. We have another question now. Are you planning to expand on other asset classes like CMBS, ABS, or CLOs?
We definitely started working on agency CMBS already. And number one reason is our data partner, EMBS, is processing this data. We can get data feed from them. Number two reason is the market is pretty significant. It's already 700 billion, as I mentioned, is even bigger than private CMBS. Number three reason is given what happened in 2020, the pandemic make the multifamily sector especially interesting because there's a lot of dynamics going on there. And also there's a lot of policy focusing in this sector. And for private, it's mainly because of the accessibility to the data. We are happy to work with other data partners, and we just haven't talked to them yet. So I actually worked with many different data sets before. I treated non-agency RMBS, and at that time I worked with core logic loan performance data, and then later on I trade CMBS, private CMBS. I actually use TRAP and Intex. So I'm pretty familiar with those data sets. We just didn't establish the relationship with the data vendor yet.
Sounds good. We have more questions coming in. Can you compare recursion versus 1010 data? I might not have said that right. I'm way out of my depth.
Data. 1010 data is when I work at Paulson, I actually use 1010 data. I actually felt 1010 data is easy to use because I have a programming background. It's not a problem for me, but I do know it is pretty expensive. So when I quit and do my thing, I did keep 1010 data in mind. I think I can provide a better solution at a lower cost. So it is a competitor of us, and yeah, we're different, but we do compete in the same battlefield.
Okay, great. Pair of questions. Any advice for someone interested in starting a company with a focus on data science? What felt like the biggest hurdle to getting customers?
So we actually last year took a course sponsored by the National Science Foundation called iCorp. And the biggest thing about starting a company is to find your clients. A lot of people think if you can find an investor, then you're good. But really, if you can find a client, you don't need your investor. And even you have your investor, you still need to find a client. So finding the client is the key. So that course actually trains startup founders, push them out of the door and talk to your potential market. And we were told day one, all you have is a set of hypotheses. You cannot assume anything. You have to validate your hypothesis. I think this matches my experience of we pushed out our first product, agency X-ray, and it wasn't a big success. Then because what I thought was not right. I thought the hedge fund managers would be willing to pay for it, but actually they don't. It turned out the cohort analyzer is a much better product and they are willing to pay for it. But I didn't know. I had the hypothesis. And fortunately, I was able to validate that and know that doesn't work very well early on. So I was able to pivot and produce other things that eventually got us clients.
Great. Next question. What are the greatest challenges and insights to achieve the performance that you achieved with Redshift? Is it possible to achieve sub-second performance with Redshift?
Sub-second. I would think Redshift is really a great tool for big data, and big data do not mean to be very fast. I actually found out using Redshift, querying a small data set could be very slow because it's not built for small tables. So in addition to use Redshift, we also use a relational database, because ironically, when the table is pretty small and it's pretty slow. And when we built Redshift, when we built X-ray, it is a website and we want people to be able to query any bond interactively. Then using Redshift running behind the server, behind the web server, the responding time will be too slow. And I mean, if the query is big, people will understand. And when the query supposed to come back fast and people don't understand. So we actually have to use Redshift to pre-process the data and then say using overnight process to push it into relational database so the website will work reasonably fast.
Great. Just to stay on the same topic for a moment, have you considered Snowflake versus Redshift?
I think it's definitely something worth trying, but since we already so deep in Redshift, you know, at this moment, we cannot afford to switch to anything else easily. Just like what I said in the very beginning, it's just one tool, and I believe there are other solutions that will work also. But for now, it doesn't make us to switch to anything that could possibly work because we are already down that path. And we already picked a tool that works well. There's no good reason to switch to another one.
Makes sense. Are you planning to offer forward-looking prepayment or default models?
Great question. I actually get a lot of such questions or suggestions. I would say no, because I know how difficult building a model is. I would rather be the one that provides the tool to help other modelers to build a better tool, build a better model. It's just hard, and also it's very hard to prove your model is good because it tells something about the future. How do you know your model is good? For us, what we do, everything we calculate, it can be validated by something else. Given infinite time, you can always validate our numbers and you will prove that our numbers is right. In a very early stage, we push out the same number on agency X-ray, and Bloomberg actually is slower than us. So the next day, people see the number on Bloomberg, it's the same as ours. So it proves we are right and we are faster. How do I do it for a model? Even, you know, a model, I don't know. I just think it's too hard for us. And plus, I think people run to model too fast. If there are things you can know for sure, you don't need a model. So we are doing the part, there are things we can tell you for sure. And after we exhausted all the facts, then people can build better model. And I think a lot of time people just, they don't want to spend the time to dig out the facts, and they just build a model, even something they can know for 100% sure, they get a probability distribution. I would rather spend the time to get higher level of certainty of things we could know.
Coming from a CMBS background, why did you choose agency RMBS as the first asset class?
Oh, that is because that's the most convenient data set I could get access to. As I described, I got the data from a friend. We happened to be friends because when I was working for hedge funds, the CEO of the company approached my employers, and he tried to sell the data to my employers. So he was in touch with me. I had never been trading agency RMBS, so we never bought his data, but we became friends. And then he's the only one who is willing to give me his data. And all the other companies, they're so big. Even I've called them, I probably get no luck. So, and it turned out to be a very good option, a very good choice, because agency RMBS is the biggest in terms of data set among all the things you were talking about. And the market has been growing, keep on growing in the past couple of years. And also in terms of disclosure, it's exploding. I started in 2015, and the biggest problem with the agency mortgage is the loan level disclosure, and the amount of data is too much for people to handle. So agencies were pushed to disclose loan level data after the financial crisis because people realized Fannie and Freddie are taking too much risk. And previously, they think agency mortgage is pretty safe. They are allowed to disclose pool level data only. And then it all changed after the financial crisis. It took a couple of years for them to get ready. And towards the end of 2013, they start to, all three agencies were disclosing loan level data. And as of today, there are 40 million loans and only 2 million securities. So that's 20 times the difference. And then when I started in 2015, and now it's 2021, so it's 6 years. Think about when I started, there was only 2 years of disclosure. And then now we have 8 years of closure. So the amount of data just quadrupled, and even more than that, because the agency issuance also was humongous in the past couple of years. So the growth of the data and the growth of the disclosure really helped our business. In any other sector, if you go to non-agency MBS, it's actually shrinking. It's shrinking dramatically. Now there is nothing to trade. And also non-agency CMBS, almost the same thing. But agency mortgage, agency residential, and agency CMBS are growing rapidly. So even though I didn't choose it, I really choose it because that's the only option. But it turned out to be a great choice.
Cool. So this will be our last question. What are the greatest challenges in data cleaning of the EMBS dataset? In providing the database copy, are there any challenges helping clients understand your database design?
The biggest challenge is there is a lot of unavoidable manual work. Even though we tried a lot of automation, but there's still sometimes you do need to have a person to look at it. The good thing is that we spend a lot of time to build such tools. Then even it's a manual process, it can be done by clicking. And it took a lot of designing thoughts of creating the tools for ourselves to use so we can do these things efficiently and incrementally. So our clients, our data cloud clients are really very sophisticated clients. So they would have no problem to start scratch to work. They all have a lot of experience with EMBS. So they're familiar with the data to begin with. And also because we do a lot of research work, we have a lot of sample queries we can provide to them. And then they can also easily generate sample queries from our system also. It really saves their time and they appreciate. They know if they do this all on their own, they will spend a lot of time to find out the outliers and figure out how to, so I would say 80% of the time will be spent on catching the last 5% of the strange things coming from the data, and it's all handled by us, and they can just use the query created by us, and they can be confident that the query will return something meaningful to them.
That was our last question. Thank you so much for your talk and for answering all these questions. Are there any concluding remarks you would like to give?
Concluding remarks, I think we're in a great position at Recursion, and we're really proud of what we do. We think we bring value to the whole financial industry. When I started this company, I really have something in mind is I feel Wall Street culture is about hiding because people want to hide a piece of information, so it can be their advantage. When they do trading, they hope they can get a better price because they know a piece of information, but the other side doesn't know about it. But I appreciate better the Silicon Valley culture, where people share and they work on things collectively. When I started my company, I've been trading for so many years, and I almost don't have a lot of technology skills left. So I have to pick up everything from scratch. I realized there's so many great things. You don't even need to pay 1 cent for it. For example, the Linux operating system, for example, the version control, Git, for example, we tried something called Heroku to deploy web services, and all this, including Python, including the things you talked about, the Jupyter. I think Tianci used Jupyter. All this open source software, including Postgres, including MySQL, and VIM. There is such a long list I can name, great things. You don't have to pay, and all these people around the world work on it collectively. This is just amazing. So this is what we want to do. We want to bring the transparency. We want to provide an affordable service to the smaller players so they can actually gain an edge. Even so they don't have to be taken advantage of by the bigger companies, because they can do the same. If you subscribe to our cohort analyzer immediately, within 5 minutes, you are like my young analyst who can do a very heavy task in 5 minutes. You immediately beat a senior quant in the investment bank. That's what we do. We're the disruptors, and we want to make the financial market more transparent.
That's so great. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. I don't know anything about finance, so I personally have learned a lot from this talk. Thank you so much, Dr. Li and Tianci, for joining us today. This concludes our January PyData Chicago meetup. Please keep a lookout on our meetup page for our February meetup. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.